Okay, guys, welcome to day one wrap up of the Lonestar Audio Fest. The perfect, and sorry, I'm still swallowing. Guys, did you watch my YouTube short? Buc-ee's key lime fudge. It's a must. I'm gonna try not to eat it, even though it's right in front of me here. That's why I wanted to record, to kind of keep myself from eating. So let me see how long I can hold out. This may be really quick. And actually, my day one wrap up probably will be pretty quick because this is the perfect yin-yang show to the Munich audio show. We're talking about thousands of people each day in Munich, high noise floor, crowded rooms, getting bumped into, lots of business being taken care of between, you got press, distributors, dealers, then consumers. It's a hectic, fun, great time. But this is the total yin-yang and not anything that is any lesser from a standpoint of an audiophile. You may actually enjoy something like the Lonestar audio show better because, as you saw today, I'm not going to have much to wrap up because when I'm able to go in these rooms, I'm the only one in there. And they have so much time to engage with. And if you watch my videos today, go back and watch them. I'm going to put them all in a playlist so you can watch them in order. But you can tell I can go in there, get the sweet spot, but even more so, talk to them about their gear, get to learn. And based on my experience over many years, I can ask certain questions that I think you guys, who I tend to find that you guys are pretty more of hardcore audiophiles, my subscribers, and you like getting into the weeds, not just such shiny fancy gear or even, shiny fancy budget gear. You like to kind of know what's going on. So I try to ask those questions that intrigue me. Hopefully it intrigues you, and getting that behind the scenes coverage. And what you saw today was some great information on some brands that I've never really, well, I have seen most of them, but some things I hadn't seen before. And the great thing about this show is it's kind of termed, and you've probably heard it today in the videos, the Woodstock for audiophiles. Just anything goes. They aren't paying any fee. This is not an organized show where you need a badge and register or anything. It's just people creating rooms, renting hotel rooms and bringing systems in there at the blessing of the Embassy Suites. And because they're suites, they don't even have to move the beds or anything. They're just putting them in a normal hotel room. So that makes it even tougher to get good sound, no room treatment you're seeing. But some of these rooms have curtains, and they've done a really good job of getting performance that, quite frankly, is better than what I heard in Munich high-end in a lot of respects, especially those rooms with the glass and the angled ceiling. If they didn't create a room within a room, there's no way you're getting top-notch performance in those rooms. And even the rooms that did create a room within a room in Munich, the problem is the noise floor is so high from bleed through still, or the people in the room. And that show is very strict about, you can't go, even press can't go before the show starts, and then when that bell chimes for the end of the day, they start locking up the rooms and kicking everybody out. It's not one of these shows where you can go back after hours and have dedicated time, and it's just a much more formal show. Again, great show for what the purposes are, and seeing state-of-the-art gear from all these manufacturers. But here's a chance to see another side of the hobby, and it's a great yin-yang is how I would put it, especially for me, coming both. I'm really enjoying going in these rooms, as you probably can even tell, and just absorbing, getting to know these people a lot better. And they're actually, some of them don't even know who I am, so it's great to kind of share with them some stuff. I was talking to one of them about the Bach. One of these guys, one of the rooms is just 4 audiophiles, rented a room, brought their own system there. They brought a T+A integrated, they brought their KEF speakers, a little SVS sub that's somebody's desk system, and they brought it there to just jam out. Now, they were playing Neil Diamond. I gave them grief about that, but they blamed it on Qobuz. They didn't have it in their playlist, so I'll give them a pass on that. But yeah, that was fun just talking to them. I shared with them about the Bach. They were interested in that. I actually have the Bach here. So potentially, I was going to do some home demos while I'm here. I'm going to probably do that still. But maybe even a room at Lonestar, I might try to put it in. It's a little bit harder to integrate that in a short time period. But in any case, this has been a lot of fun learning about it. And so highlights for the day, everything you saw pretty much. The Infigo and the RossoFiorentino speaker, that was really impressive. The Infigo gear has been really impressive with the aesthetics, the performance, being able to drive any speaker, smooth, dynamic, neutral. You couldn't ask for much more other than maybe lower price points, but it's giving you that very sexy chassis that I really love. It's not all heat sinks like most amp designs now are just 100% putting the design in the heat sink. They're actually minimal heat sinks and putting it into other things. And the ability to have a clear top or covered top gives you that versatility for whatever your taste profile is. A+ to Infigo, always supporting shows, even small shows like this. Now the RossoFiorentino, I've seen their speakers before, very innovative. In some respects, they're not just a typical box speaker. But this is a good point because I don't have a lot to talk about. To piggyback, if you saw my coverage of Munich high-end, I talked about, why I like open baffle speakers over box speakers in general. Now, one of them has to do with just normal height, and line sources tend to go floor to ceiling and present that music. Open baffle, floor to ceiling, I like that feeling. It gives me more of a feeling that I'm listening to it live. But the bigger problem for me with certain types of box speakers is that you get that coloration of the bass. And this would be a good point to share with you which speakers I think do that, point source box speakers that do it great, and some which that's going to be a trade-off that you have to consider. And today was a perfect example that sometimes that's the trade-off when you get a budget point source box. And I'll give a good example that I've shared on the channel before. I reviewed the Tecton speakers. Now, for the money, great speaker, and it's very high quality, and they pick the right trade-offs in getting you something at a budget point that, great box speakers that I like Acora, Escalon, Magicos, those are all ones I would endorse. Those are much higher priced. But when we're just talking empirically, what are those differences? Well, when the Tecton, I knew as soon as I started listening to it, it's a rectangular box cabinet, probably not a lot put inside there to dampen or address the violent nature of those drivers in the cabinet, and you just feel and hear that coloration. Again, it's a good trade-off. Most people don't even care about that in terms of bass performance, but for me, that's what you're paying for extra when you get Escalons, Magicos, the Acoras, the high-end box speakers. And today was a perfect example because the RossoFiorentino in the Infigo room, the higher end model, the $17,000 one, the biggest difference I heard from that one and the $10,000 model, which was excellent. I mean, it brought Johnny Cash back to life in a large respect. Really good with that material. But when we played the bass material or bass heavy material, that's when I started to hear more of the coloration of the standard box chassis of point source box versus their other one, which had put a little more attention to the bass box design. And that's things that Escalon does, Acora does, all these to address that a lot better. Thicker materials and all these things you're paying that extra for. And unfortunately in this hobby, to get that extra percentage is usually small percentages in performance, cost a lot of money. But if you're going for cost no object performance, if you're going for things that I value, this is one of the perfect examples today where that extra money for the $17,000 RossoFiorentino, and also you got the Super Tweeter, but I don't think that that's a big deal. I think it's how they did the bass cabinet and the bass sounded. That's worth it to me. And so just to kind of piggyback on, what I outlined in the previous. Also, another thing you can do to kind of feel for open baffle versus point source box and which ones I like. One thing you can do is take an Escalon speaker, for instance, Escalon Forza. And I did this at a friend's house who has them. Go in right near an Escalon Forza, right in front, or be 90 degrees off, or somewhat 10 o'clock position from the front, and then go equivalent from the back. It sounds almost identical from the front and the back. It's almost like an open baffle speaker because they have such a minimal baffle, and it sounds almost like an open baffle. So again, Creating that cabinet, though, is very difficult to get you that best of both worlds performance. Same thing with like a Cora with their very thick and strong cabinet material. You're not going to get a lot of bleed through. And then that tapered, it's not a high volume cabinet with a lot of violent activity occurring inside of there. So yes, you're paying more for these point source box speakers, but in terms of performance, where I hear the performance difference, you can have the same tweeters and mid-range and have the same crossover at a lesser price point. But it's really that bass that really ends up, for me, differentiating what is that, reaching that cost no object, my preference. So today was a great example of that. Kudos to RossoFiorentino. I think that $17,000 model is very attractive for a lot of people's budgets and performance demands. So, but another one I really wanted to highlight was that Raven Audio with that $3,200 20 watt integrated. But the key part was when it was a little bit further in the video, he showed me where it's got the high pass. And that way, yeah, you only have 20 watts, which may not be enough for most speakers if you're driving the bass. But if you can engage that high pass, then that 20 watts is only going to be driving mid-range and high frequencies. Could be plenty enough for most speakers to drive those drivers. And then you hand it off to a sub to do the heavy lifting, and usually those subs have 500,000 watts or more than enough power to deliver there. So you could get a very high-end budget system pairing that Raven Audio with a ton of great bookshelf-sized high-performance monitors, source point 8s with those Raven Audio, that combine, and then add a sub using the high pass. Man, could be really killer. You may even want to go up, it's not that much more, to the 70 watt Raven Audio. And I'm going to go back tomorrow, go to their even higher end room. I saved that for tomorrow. I just today wanted to focus on that budget room. And yeah, that was killer stuff. And the other cool thing is they record their own stuff and have YouTube content. So again, I've always talked about YouTube content is very important. You get to hear stuff you don't get to hear on streaming. And today was a perfect example. High quality, enjoyable to watch, enjoyable to listen to, plenty good enough quality for any high-end system. So another example of that today. And then finally, one of the bigger highlights is, William. It's William, it's short for William, that he created this company that does the cabinet designs for Danny Ritchie's GR Research speakers. And he does a great job with it. He was talking about his woodworking skills. I encourage you to watch that entire video. His wife's also a talented leather worker. Got some of the examples in that room. And then he's got basically my MTM module that's in the GR Research and Extremes, and then pairing it with the servo rhythmic subs on top of it. So it's a modular design, kind of like I suggested Danny do with the GR Research and Extremes. Make it modular, a little bit easier to both paint, finish, move around, construct, ship, all those things that William does not. William does not do the GR Research and Extreme. Will not build that for you. It's 7 foot tall. It's just too much of a deal to move around and deal with at his place, as you heard. But if it was a modular build or closer to the Exotica breakup, he probably would do it. So anyway, he's got top-notch skills, and that room sounded great. It was the first time, first time I was able to give my USB stick, the little pentode example, and had some recordings that I never get to hear on systems at shows. One was one that Dave, who you've seen in my channel, he was present at the mastering of. One was on the Usher best of one of their test CDs, very rare to find. You can't find it on streaming. It was a Songs of Africa, which tests, it's very repetitive, so I didn't listen to the whole thing, but the fact that it's repetitive bass allows me to concentrate on bass performance with that track, and the repetitiveness allows me to make sure of my assessment because it's not just a snapshot in time. So it's a really good test track, but only if I give the USB stick can I use it. Same thing with Shenandoah. This was on a test CD by First Impression Music. It's one of my favorite test songs because it isolates all different instruments at different parts of the song, as you heard, that you can focus on: mass strings, flutes, wind instruments, bass. You know, when they start playing the drums, all of a sudden, that's when you're going to kick in the subs and a level of realism, or whether you can hear the subs, whether the soundstage changes, or you get that depth. So those speakers pass with flying colors, very reminiscent of what I get at home, and certainly at a $17,000 price point for everything in that room. I think he said he'd ship it, create it, build it, bring it to you if you're close enough. You're getting performance that's very comparable to those big time systems, six-figure systems we heard in Munich. So there's nothing to sneeze at in terms of performance that these shows are giving. It's a much smaller show. You're not going to want to make a dedicated trip and spend 3 days. You know, you're going to be able to get through these rooms in one day. There's only one floor. But maybe next year it's going to build up, and certainly I feel privileged to give some treatment to this in the press. A lot of people, it's not cool enough to do it. There's not big enough brands. It's not worth covering. But to me, these are the kind of people that are the heart and soul of the hobby, fun to be around, quality people. And as you heard today, if you watch the videos, very high end with what they can do. So hopefully you enjoyed. I'll have plenty more tomorrow, and going to see Rhapsody Audio, which has amazing gear. The Ultivox speakers, the Magico M9s, all kinds of cool stuff, but I don't want to tip my hand too much yet. That's for tomorrow, so stay tuned. Sign up, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you back here soon.